Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to part 2 of our book cover that we created from a colorized photo. And again, it could be anything that you're working on for your photo. And what we're going to do in InDesign is we're going to add the text, because basically for publishing, InDesign is the program we use to basically bring in images, whether they be photographic images from Photoshop or whether we're using graphic images, logos from Illustrator, which typically come in as EPS files. So what we're going to do here, this is the finished version, and you can see I have a bunch of text boxes, and I'm going to try to match this as best I can. I may do some things different when I bring it in, but I'm going to do this from scratch. So I'm going to go File, New, and I'll start this from scratch. I'll go to New Document, and I'm going to make this our same size. We're going to make it like the cover. And again, we're not setting this up like a full cover with the like a full jacket. We're just putting together just the front as far as this goes right now. So we're going to go 5 by 7 1/4, which is 7.25 for our size, and we're keeping our intent on print. And as far as, we don't need bleed and slug down here. As far as margins, what we're gonna put like 0.25. We don't really need to use them that much, but I'm gonna put 0.325. You can hit the lock button to kind of lock them all together. So if you put in one, it puts them all around, and that's fine. The reason I'm not making the margin bigger is because I have some stuff that's close to the edge down here. And also in here, you could turn off facing pages, because they're not going to be facing pages. It's just going to be one page. So that's why it was saying, you know, inside and outside for margins. But we're just going to go top, bottom, left, and right for our margin right now. So you don't have to worry about columns. One page right now, that's all we need. We don't need a primary text frame. So everything that you're seeing here, a new document, is fine. Uncheck these. Print. Number of pages 1, 5, 7 1/4. All right, so we're going to hit OK. So there's our document, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to place in our image, or your image. I'm going to use the Marilyn image. You probably have another image, and we're bringing in the TIFF file, not the Photoshop. And we do that, you could be on your arrow tool, and we're going to go File, Place, and I'm going to go look for my Marilyn 2 TIFF, because that's the newest one I made, and I'm going to bring that in. And when you bring it in, it has like a loaded cursor, and I'm just going to kind of click in the corner up here, and it should make its own text box that fills up the page, which is fine. And it may not look exactly like you see it. You'll see the guides on here. You could turn that off. And InDesign down here, as long as you're in 2 columns. I like working in 2 columns as far as the toolbar. Now if you're not in two columns, put it in 2 columns, because then you have this little preview area which kind of grays out the background. It hides your pasteboard on the side, and it also hides the guides. So, but showing the guides is okay right now. Just be careful, you click in the middle, you move your image inside the box. So it's kind of a weird thing. So I'll just edit undo. So we don't really have to do much with our image. We're going to put text on top, and in fact, you could do this. You could make a layer above. You could call layer 1, image if you wanted to, and then layer 2 you could work on, and that's where we can put our text. So maybe we'll do that, and then I'll lock the image. That way I won't accidentally move it around or do anything with it, because I don't want to do anything with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and I'll just put, I'll call this text. So I know that's where the text is going to be, or your copy or whatever. So I'll call that text. So I'm going to be working on that layer, and I'm just going to take my T-tool and make a text box, and I'll make it nice and big. Now keep in mind, if you make it too shallow and the text doesn't fit in there, it'll disappear, and I'll show you what I mean. But so I'll make it a little shallow right now, and I'm just going to type in Marilyn, and I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to use the font Callisto. It has a little more, it's a serif font, but it has a little more characters than some of the others, so I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to go over here and change the size. I'll go up to 60. Now if I go up to like 72 or a little bit more, I'll click on the little up arrow. If I go too far, it's going to spread out of the box, and you'll see that. If that happens, you could just drag down on this and just make it a little deeper. So I want it to go pretty much across, so I'm just going to highlight, and they have tools here to align, so I'm just going to align it. And notice that I made the text box, I drew the text box with my T-tool, and I made it go from margin to margin. That way when you center it, you know it's definitely centered. And if you needed to do anything else, if you need to highlight it, you could use, our tracking is right here, and I might tighten up the tracking like -10 when I'm highlighting it. That brings the letters closer together. If you ever need to bring a pair of letters closer together, just for example, if you thought that M and A was a little further apart, you could use kerning. That's this AV up here. And to do that, you just go down, and it pulls the letter a little closer to it. It doesn't, kind of small increments, but Okay, so this text looks nice right now, and it looks nice just in black, and I'm going to move the whole text box. Now, the way this works, if you do anything with your text, use your text tool, and you highlight it, and if you do anything with the box, the frame, as they call it, the text frame, if I want to move it down, I can move it down, and I'm going to move it down kind of closer to her head, because I want it in there, but I'll keep it centered on those margins, and I'm going to make it white, and you can make it any color. I'll show you a couple things. If you want to change color, they have kind of the text fill color, and they even have outline. I rarely use outline, although I did use it on this version. I used like a purple outline. I don't know if I like it, but anyway, this is the fill color up here, and if you go on here, they show you the text swatches that are in InDesign. It's not like you have all these RGB colors. They basically have RGB and CMYK, and that's pretty much it. And if you need custom colors, you have to add them ahead of time. Now, one thing you could do, let's say I just wanted like a purple color for this. I could go up here and take my actually I could go over here and take my eyedropper and select from here and make it purple. Okay, now there's it's hard to even tell, but it's my purple color. If I highlight it again, no, I have to highlight it to show it. If I double click on here, I'll see that it kind of chose a purple color. It's even hard to see. It doesn't even look very purple. Now this area I'm working in here, this color picker, it's not the nicest area to work in. And what might be easier if you wanted a purple color is to go in this lab color, because then it's a little easier working around. You could kind of find a hue like purple and then kind of darken it, and I could hit OK. And there's kind of my purple color, you know, and I'll just do that for now. Maybe I'll put a white outline or something just to do it different than the other sample. Let's say I wanted a white outline on here. Again, have to highlight the text, because otherwise it'll put an outline on the box, the text frame that I have. So if I want a frame, I'm going to go to paper, white is paper, and I'll put a white frame on here. And if I want it a little thicker, again, they don't make this easy, I have to go find the stroke palette, which is over here, and I'll make it a little bit thicker. I don't know if I'm even seeing it right now. I'll have to kind of get off it. Yeah, there's my white frame. It was hard to even see it, but there's white. That doesn't look bad. I'll leave it like that for now. Maybe it's a little thicker than I want. I'll zoom into it a little bit. And it's a little thicker. It's 3-point. I'll take it down to 2-point. It's probably fine. Now you can't even see it change when you do it. And I'm probably going to put a drop shadow on here too. But that looks fine for now. Like I said, the other one I had white. This one I'm doing dark. That's fine. And then what I'm also going to do, since I already have this, I'm going to just make another text box. Instead of trying to work with the two lines together, which can be a hassle, the spacing, I'm just going to make another text box, and I'm going to type in finding the real, or my date with, whatever you want to call it. And I'll put 3 dots after it, which is an ellipsis. Finding the real. Okay, I'll highlight that, and I'll stay in the sans serif font. I'll stay with Callisto. And I'm going to do like an italic, not even a bold italic. I'll just leave it italic. And I'll increase that size. And you could click up here, or you could choose one of them. And there's 24. Maybe I'll make it up to like 36. And then I'll center it. And let me just see how this looks so far centered. It looks a little weird centered like that. I might have to bump it over with the ellipses. But it looks okay. I might make it a little smaller based on the way my title is right now. Or I'll maybe make Marilyn a little bigger. Marilyn's 80. Maybe I'll go a little bit bigger, up to like 84. And this is 36. Maybe I'm going to go down just a little bit so it makes a nice kind of centered look here. I'll take it down to like 32. And I think that looks fine. Now if I wanted to use another color here, I'm going to make, I guess, a purple again, unless I used blue from the background. Here's what I'll do. If I want to use that same purple, now I don't know what purple this is. This is just some purple I selected from the picture. Okay, it's not even a CMYK purple. What I could do is I could highlight up here, and there's my purple, and I could go over here and my CMYK, and then I could add CMYK swatch. And that means it'll make a swatch that's 73, 100, 14, and 37. And you could hit OK, and you could hit add swatch, and I'll hit OK. Now what that means is, then when I highlight this, I don't have to sample a color. I could just scroll down, find that swatch, and use that. And that way I'm being consistent. I'm using that same purple color. And I'm going to move this down here a little bit. And it could overlap. The text won't have any fill in it. And I might even bump it over a little bit just because the ellipsis, I'll put a space just because the ellipsis throws it off center a little. Normally I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it looks a little nicer now. Now if you don't want to see these frames, you could go in this mode here and then deselect to see how it looks. And that looks okay. So that's the top part. And next thing I'll do before I take a break is I'll put a little drop shadow on this. And I'm going to go, there are different ways you can do this. You can go to Object, Effects, and use a drop shadow. Now you might be saying, well, don't you have to highlight the text? Well, let's see what happens here. We're going to go to drop shadow. And right now, I'll just turn it on. I'll put on preview to see what it's putting a drop shadow on. And it's doing the text, it's not doing the box. So you can see by default, it puts a real kind of harsh drop shadow on, way too much. And these aren't the nicest tools. It's much easier to do this in Photoshop or Illustrator. They don't, you know, they're never consistent with these tools. But if it's at 0.09, maybe I'll take it down. That's the distance. I'll take it down to like 0.06. And same thing over here. I'll go down, I'll go up and down. And I'll just take a look at it. And that's a decent distance. It's still too heavy. This is the size is the amount of blur. So if you go down on blur, it makes it harder. It makes it almost like not even a shadow anymore. So I'll leave them all the same. So for effects, I'll put them all at 0.65, 0.65, 0.65. So I'll do them all together like that. And you could change your angle. You can also change the distance, how far it goes away. And you could change the opacity, which actually I'm going to turn down because I think it's too dark. So I might put it down real low, like something like maybe like 30 or somewhere around there. That looks a little nicer. I don't want it to really pop out. And I think that looks good. I just want it to kind of make the white pop a little bit, but not be really distracting. So that looks okay. Okay, so those are my effects that are in there. If you ever want to go back to there, there's also a palette that comes up. I didn't really organize my palettes real well to go through the whole InDesign thing, but if you wanted to go back, you could go back to effects and it'll open that up again. But there is an effects palette that you can actually open up. Let me take a look at effects. I don't use the effects palette, but there is an effects palette. I'll dock it in here. But there is an effects palette that you can go in here and edit some of your effects that are in here. I don't find this the easiest palette to use. I find it easier to go back to effects, but anyway, there is an effects palette. So that's the only effects we're going to do on here for that text. So what I'll do, I'll stop here and then I'll do the bottom part and we'll finish this up. So again, 2 text boxes. This one has a purple color with a white stroke, and then we put in a white drop or black drop shadow effect on it. This one is just italic. And also to get our color in here, we sampled the color using the eyedropper from our picture, and then we use that little, let me just show you this again because this isn't the easiest thing. If you double click on here, it brings up, you can work in RGB, you can work in LAB, which I think is easier to make edits to it. And then instead of adding a lab swatch, because we don't work in lab, we went over here and we added a CMYK swatch because that's what we're working in. So I'll cancel out of there, I'll stop this, and I'll make sure I save it when I come back, and then we'll finish this up.